to salute the chairman of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, Chairman Peter DeFazio. Because of his leadership, we are bringing a bill to the floor today that not only builds the infrastructure of America, but helps to rebuild the middle class. It does so in a transformative way, and you'll hear about it from our colleagues here. And in doing so, it does so with equity. That's what I'm so proud of in the bill. It puts equity front and center, benefits targeted underserved communities, communities of color, rural communities, and regions with persistent poverty, in addition to everything else. It's called the Invest in America Act, a strong jobs-creating package that seizes the once-in-a-century opportunity to rebuild America's infrastructure. Thanks to our chairman, Mr. DeFazio, who has decades of experience in all of this, and in doing so in a bipartisan way. Also, thanks to Chairman Frank Pallone of the Energy and Commerce Committee for the water aspects, and he'll talk about that. We're joined by Eleanor Holmes Norton. She will be Eleanor Holmes Norton, chair of the T&I Subcommittee on Highway and Transit, so important in all of this. Representative Donald Payne of New Jersey, Subcommittee on Railroads, Pipelines, and Hazardous Materials. Sharice Davids, Vice Chair of the newest member of Congress, effective from the start, Vice Chair of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Paul Tonko, Chair of Energy and Commerce Subcommittee on Environment and Climate Change. Thank you for your leadership. And not with us, but with us in terms of developing the policy, Grace Napolitano of California, who's been really a champion on water resources, and she's on the Water Resources and Transportation Subcommittee. This is all to say that these are some of the people, a good deal of the leadership, to bring these pieces of legislation to the floor, but all part of what President Biden has presented to us to build back better, and build back better in a way that many more people will participate in the shall we say, the prosperity that this building back better will bring to our country. And so, without further ado, it is my pleasure, honor, privilege to yield to the distinguished chair of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, with recognition of his years of service there, his understanding that to build back better, we have to do so with a responsibility to our children, to save the planet, to do so with equity as we create good paying, I'll use a four-letter word, jobs, 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 jobs. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Everybody always wonders about my socks. Today, I got my Route 66 socks. That's nostalgic. It was a great time in America. It was when we began the Eisenhower program to join the country together with the National Highway System. It was built as the National Defense Highway System because of fear of invasion by Russia to move military equipment, and because of fear of nuclear war to evacuate the cities. We have a new existential challenge, which is climate change. And as we move into the 21st century and we rebuild our infrastructure, this is time to transform the way the system works and rebuild it with materials that are resilient, rebuild it in anticipation of sea level rise, severe weather events, heat waves in the Northwest. We had pavement melting, cables supplying the streetcars melting this last week. Pretty extraordinary, unprecedented. So we have to rebuild in ways that we never even thought about before. It's going to be expensive, but the good news is it is going to create millions of good-paying jobs. Let me talk about the smaller part of the bill first, wastewater. I was meeting with the laborers, and they were still kind of upset about canceling the XL pipeline, the most destructive form of energy possible, tar sands. And they said that was 8,000 or 10,000 jobs. I said, well, I'm putting $5 billion a year into wastewater, and every billion creates 20,000 jobs. That's 100,000 jobs a year for your people and other people in construction and other trades. And they're like, wow, that sounds pretty good. I'm talking IBW, and I said, they're concerned about, well, this is awful green. I said, yeah, we're going to electrify the National Highway Network. The largest single source of fossil pollution is transportation in this country. But the world is moving to electric. The corporations in America are moving to electric, but we're stuck in the past. I've read Smith testify, making the business case. Fred Smith, FedEx, he's going all electric. I drove an electric semi, an 80,000-pound semi, about a month ago. They're incredible. They're coming. There's no single place in America outside of a fleet charging station to charge one of those. GM is going all electric. So we can either let China capture another market from us, the future of transportation in EVs and AVs, autonomous vehicles, or we can compete. In fact, we can lead again, like we did in the 60s and the 70s, when our infrastructure was the envy of the world. We were number one. We're now number 13 and falling fast. We're investing 0.5% of our GDP in infrastructure. China's investing 6%. Our other competitor nations are investing between 3 and 4%. We cannot afford to be absent from this debate anymore. States are trying to do it on their own. They can't do it on their own. This is a federal system. It's a federal problem. It's international competitiveness. It's jobs. It's manufacturing. So we need to make these investments. In the surface bill, we are going to increase transit by 140%, and we're going to make states look at alternatives to more and more lanes of highways. We built 25,000 miles of highways, 35,000, in our 100 largest cities in the last 20 years, and guess what? Congestion is 6 times worse. That is not the solution. So we're going to make states look at alternatives, rail, transit, microtransit, all the other things that can work. We're going to deal with our bridge problem. 47,000 bridges in this country on the national highway system are in need of substantial repair or replacement. We have a massive new bridge program here. We also have one targeted toward the most economically significant bridges in America. I might mention the Brent Spence Bridge from Kentucky to Ohio, which will probably have to close in 8 years, and it takes about 8 years to build a bridge of that size. So that's one of only many major projects around the country that are going begging. The tunnels under the river, which are going to ultimately fail and cut off rail traffic, or even that's 20th century technology. We're living off 18th century, 19th century engineering. The critical rail tunnel under Baltimore was built in 1872. It's brick. I've been in it. It's raining inside because of leaking water mains above. It's not going to last. And it also has a huge curve and restricts traffic and speeds. We have to do these things. We have to do these things for the American people to get them out of congestion, so that they don't have to, get car repairs because of potholes. We have to do it for American business so that their trucks aren't sitting in traffic and costing them money and avoiding just-in-time delivery. We have to do it for our international competitiveness. This is the moment. We have to be bold, and this is the bill.
All right.
Good stuff. Thank you. Let me thank the speaker and also Chairman DeFazio. I'm going to sound like them because this is all about investment. I love the name of this, investment, because that's what Nancy talks about all the time. And what Peter said is absolutely true. In other words, if you don't make these investments, whether it's transportation or it's water, what I'm going to talk about, then you just get behind and everything falls apart. And the bottom line is that the states and the towns need help. I was with Don Payne last, Monday. We were with Senator Schumer and Senator Booker and the New Jersey and the New York House delegation, and we went through Gateway Tunnel. I don't know how many times we've been through that tunnel, a million times, but it was built in 1910. We're talking about 1910, over 100 years ago, and it's falling apart. And when we had Superstorm Sandy, it flooded, what'd they say, up to 4 feet? But the same is true for our drinking water. Everyone's familiar with Flint. You guys have covered Flint and the problems. Newark, New Jersey, the same thing. These places just need money. About a year or two ago, in the last session, we passed a bill that allowed Newark to use federal money that was for other purposes to realign it, so they could address their pipes and rebuild their drinking water underground system. And now the mayor said it's almost done, right? It's a question of money. It's a question of investment. That's what it really is. So on the drinking water side, from the Energy and Commerce Committee, there's basically two bills that are incorporated into this title with the Surface Transportation Act for this Investment Act. One is the infrastructure. That's from Paul Tonko. And this very much goes along with President Biden's plan. It's $105 billion. About half of that goes to replace the lead pipes across the country, which is what President Biden has been talking about. The other half is for augmenting the safe drinking water, the revolving fund that goes to the states. And then we have, I think, $5 billion to address PFAS contamination. But this bill, the Tonko bill, goes beyond that. It establishes water quality standards. Those standards have not kept up, and under the Trump administration, he was really trying to kill them. So now we're going to have better water quality standards. And then the second bill, which is part of this, is from Lisa Blunt Rochester, and this is the assistance program for people of low income. As some of you know, I was either in the Omnibus or the American Rescue Plan. We established an assistance program to help you pay your water bills. During the pandemic, a lot of people fell behind in their water bills. So it wipes out their debt for their water bills. It has a 5-year moratorium on shutoffs, and then it continues and makes permanent this assistance program for safe drinking water, which I think you also have one for wastewater, too. Mm-hmm. There's also another one that Peter has for wastewater. So combined here, we are seriously, this is a tremendous investment in upgrading our nation's drinking water and providing assistance to people, because water is a fundamental human right, and everybody is, in my opinion, and I think all of us believe, entitled to safe drinking water. So thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Colon. Thank you so much. The chairs of the subcommittees will be available to answer questions. We want to focus on this subject. It is clear from the presentation of our two chairs that the most expensive maintenance is no maintenance at all. And that also happens to be a safety issue in our country. So thank you both for your leadership and your committees on these important issues. And also, the leadership of President Biden has been so exceptional in recognizing our need, both from a safety standpoint, but also from the most valuable commodity of all time. With what our distinguished chairman said about transportation and the rest, we'll save time for people. They'll spend less time in transit. That will improve their quality of life, improve the quality of the air their children breathe, shorten the distance between getting to work or to school and to home, also shorten the distance of product to market. So again, the better we invest, the title of the bill now, the less it's going to cost, and the better off the American people will be in terms of the quality of their lives, our lives, as well as the strength of our economy. With that, any questions? Yes, sir.
Could you, actually, it's probably for Chairman DeFazio, could you just walk us through how, once this bill passes, how it meshes or would mesh with the Senate bipartisan infrastructure deal, whether there has to be another bill that passes the Senate, or just walk us through it?
Well, the Senate bipartisan deal is an outline, and it has good numbers, except I find them deficient on rail, but they're within shouting distance. So I believe we could work out the spending levels in the bill, but there is no policy attached to their proposal. You have to have policy to do a bill, and we also have to policy in place before October 1st. So, I'm suggesting that substantial amounts of the policy in our bill should be, negotiated by the White House and the Senate and the House to be part of that bipartisan proposal. And so I'm actually encouraged by the movement over there. It's substantially larger than what we saw out of EPW and Commerce, and of course we've seen nothing out of finance or banking because of Pat Toomey's hatred of transit. So there is no transit title in the Senate. But the bipartisan group has a robust a number for transit, but no policy attached.
So you see this as the vehicle to negotiate with the Senate over their package?
I believe that would, yes, or they can just look at, I asked, how, the majority leader would like to move quickly. And I said, well, it took my staff 7 months to write the policy. I don't know how quickly you can write policy over there. So I would suggest that you look at our policies and we adopt significant portions of those and perhaps some of what came out of Commerce and some of what came out of EPW.
Yes?
On the select committee, I'm curious if you
Wait,
could...
first, I'm happy to answer that question. But right now, we're focusing on investing in the future, creating good paying jobs in an equitable way, and let's stay on that for now. Thank you.
Just to follow up on Jonathan's question, the process for integrating these DeFazio bill provisions, do you see a formal conference, Madam Speaker? How, are you going to engage in high-level negotiations? How does that actually mesh the two bills?
How do you see that, Mr. Chairman?
Well, I obviously will ultimately defer to the wisdom of my leadership and the leadership of the Senate. But if they want to dispatch of this quickly, they're talking about July, which is a very, very quick timeline if you're trying to, negotiate policy in any major way. The numbers, again, shouldn't be too difficult. The pay-fors are outside my realm, so I can't comment on those at all. Then I would suggest it would probably be a much quicker, more informal process.
I would also point out that, the Senate passed a water bill also, but it's a very similar situation, right? The numbers, the authorization levels are not as high. It doesn't have the water quality standards or the assistance program, but you could conference or, work between the two houses on that as well. But just like with the transportation.
Again, there's a sense of urgency about surface because we have a deadline, which is October 1st. And so there is a sense of urgency there. Wastewater, I don't know when the last time drinking water. Wastewater, SRF was last reauthorized in 1988. So I want to get it done. There's no deadline since we haven't reauthorized it in 33 years. But approps always continues it. But I would like to get that done, in short order. But it's not as urgent.
It is important, though, that we get the lead out and all of that, and we're glad to, of the water. We have some urgencies, but in terms of legislative schedule, as the distinguished chairman indicated, September 30th would be the deadline. But just to make the point that infrastructure, and my colleagues can attest to this, has always been bipartisan. It has always been bipartisan. All the years that we've been here, I've been here, Mr. DeFazio and I have been here some amount of time. You too, almost, Mr. Pallone. We have seen bipartisanship in all of this, and that's what gives us hope that this can be done. Yeah, no.
On infrastructure, can I ask?
No, on the infrastructure, yeah, but not, yeah.
Right, infrastructure. I'm curious if any of you on the stage have thoughts on the $6 trillion top line proposed in reconciliation, and if you can weigh in also between that and the $4 trillion price tag.
Okay. But that's a different subject. That's not an infrastructure subject. That's a budget question, and we will see what the needs are. We will see what we can offset. We'll come up with a number, but that's not necessarily an infrastructure question.
I have a question about the assistance program. Is there any more, can you give some more information about that? Like, is this in $1 billion that would be replenished at some point? And what-
Yeah.
The water program?
Blunt Rochester one.
The water
The Blunt
assistance?
Rochester.
The Blunt
Lisa's
Rochester.
program.
Yeah, that's sort of like LIHEAP for water.
It's very similar to LIHEAP, and we do have it in place now during the COVID emergency, but this would make it permanent. And it's the amount of the level of eligibility, poverty level, whatever, depends on the state. So it varies from state to state, just like the LIHEAP program. But the one thing, and this is where a lot of the Michigan delegation were involved, a lot of people have debt. In other words, that because of the moratorium during the COVID period, they've collected debt. This wipes out their debt, and then it has a 5-year no shutoffs, and then an assistance program. But once your debt's wiped out, then you're going to have to pay. Otherwise, you're going to ring up debt again and owe more. But it's very practically oriented to try to help people who suffered during the COVID.
Can I just say something? Let me, sometimes small examples. I had a neighbor just down the street from me. Her husband died. She wasn't able to work, 2 kids, and she couldn't pay her water bills and electric bills, and she went into default on her mortgage. She ultimately lost her house, but she had nowhere to go with the kids, and they lived there for a while with no electricity, no water, and no sewer. Now, sewer is obviously a public health concern. Water, I think, should be clean drinking water, should be a right. Electricity obviously is, beyond our realm. But I mean, I'm sure that story is repeated hundreds of thousands, millions of times across America. People, who are losing their house, who can't afford to pay those bills, but they're staying there without things that are absolutely necessary for the health of themselves and their kids. That shouldn't happen.
Mr. Chairman, could you just explain for the benefit of those who may not know what LIHEAP is?
Yeah, the Low-Income Energy Assistance Program, it's been around for decades. And it's oriented toward, for the north, for the winter, for heating, and to the south, for the summer, for air conditioning. And obviously now apparently we need air conditioning in the north too, but we don't yet. I mean, 2/3 of the people in Portland don't even have it, let alone. So it has been a program that is always oversubscribed. When my county puts out requests, Lane County, every year at the beginning of the year, they're oversubscribed by the end of January for people applying to this. But what it does is it helps those people pay their electric bills, and that way, they don't get into shutoffs. And I have a public utility, and the public utility doesn't have to bear all of the burden of the payments that they can't make. So it's a shared benefit for the community. It's a good investment by taxpayers.
So just to clarify, this would replace the LIHEAP?
No, these are
it's in addition. It's
these
modeled
are
on it.
these are modeled on it. One's for drinking water and one's for wastewater. They're modeled on LIHEAP.
Yeah, they're modeled on it. Okay. So, yes, ma'am.
Well, if you're ready to move on to this select committee, I did want to ask a question on infrastructure as well, but just to clarify, kind of getting back to the process, even though you're voting on this package this week, Madam Speaker, can you just clarify, is it still your position that you will not vote on a bipartisan package or reconciliation package until the Senate does it first? And then secondly, on the select committee, I know you're considering putting a...
Let's just stay on the subject that is here. Let's stay focused. The statement that I made, yes, that is a statement I stand by. Our caucus is very, very pleased with the bipartisan agreement that the president was able to achieve working with Democrats and Republicans in the Senate. As the distinguished chairman mentioned, there are many good features to it, but not in terms of numbers, but not policy. What I said last week, and I reiterate now, is that in the House of Representatives, that particular version, as it is something that we would take up once we see what the budget parameters are of the budget bill that the Senate will pass. Yeah, that's right.
Can I follow
No, one more on this subject, anyone? For this?
Budget resolution, Madam Speaker?
No, I just want to see if there's another question, because perhaps some of our colleagues would like to address some of this.
The Speaker has raised a very strong concern for our children about lead in our water. And Chairman Pallone has led a real good fight on energy and commerce. And, Chairman DeFazio has incorporated that into his overall bill. But our bill respects the forecasts made by the professionals that it will cost $45 billion to remove all the lead pipes, which covers some 400,000 schools and child care centers. So this is critical in terms of having an accurate number. And then we go another $53 billion into investment for infrastructure through the state revolving funds. So we are significantly proposing a distinct amount of money that will go towards that lead pipe removal. And I hope that as we come to the table, that decision will be respected.
I'd like to have my vice chair. I neglected to talk. We have a significant new rural emphasis in this bill, which has been neglected, and my vice chair, who was key in that, Sharice Davis, would like to comment on that briefly.
Thank you, Chairman. So a couple of things. I actually would also like to make just a broad set of comments about how excited I am to get the chance to join my colleagues who have been working on these issues for a long time. And I was just thinking earlier about, I was 8 years old when when we talked about the renewal of some of these programs that have existed for a long time. I was 8 the last time when we're talking about water. You know, I mean, look, we are in a new age. We have an opportunity right now for us to be able to make real investments in transformational investments in our infrastructure. And coming from the state of Kansas, you know, the 3rd district, I am very fortunate to represent a district that has a strong, densely populated urban area in Wyandotte County and Johnson County, where we've got suburbs and exurbs, and then a portion of Miami County, which is rural. And you have to think about the ways that we're trying to connect all of these things. You know, there are a lot of people in our country who have needed these kind of infrastructure investments, whether we're talking about people who are feeling the urgency because they're sitting in traffic for a really long time. They aren't able to catch a bus because the bus routes have been reduced, or are just not able to get access to clean drinking water. You know, we're seeing rural communities have been hit really hard because of this pandemic. And right now, the investments that we're making in all of these areas are exactly what this country has been asking for. It's one of the reasons that I fought to get on the T&I committee, because if we want to thrive when we move forward, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, we have got to get this done right now. And I think that the leadership of the caucus, Chairman DeFazio, has been amazing. And I really appreciate all the work that has gone into this, and also listening to the voices of tribal communities. I can't leave the stage without saying thank you to the House for doing that.
Well, let me just say that's one of the, there are many reasons why you should have been on the Transportation Committee, but we have been saying for a long time that we cannot rebuild the infrastructure, invest in the infrastructure of our country without having tribal communities at the table. Whether we're talking about water, whether we're talking about transportation, whatever the subject, it is essential that they are at the table, and in fact, they are within the person of the vice chair of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Thank you.
And territories. For the first time, Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands are getting an increase in their share in, I think, 2.5 decades, despite their growth.
Colleagues, anything further?
Well, I want only to say I've been on this committee for 30 years since I've been in Congress. We've just been paving over roads. I hope you see this for what it is. This is a once-in-a-lifetime bill where we're trying to essentially go back over instead of passing the kind of bills we've passed, to essentially understand that infrastructure is a much broader word and a much broader concept in our country today. And this bill, with climate change as its forefront, seeks to take the transportation and infrastructure mark well beyond what our bills every few years have done in the past. It's a cosmic bill, and I'm very proud to have been the subcommittee chair that wrote the bill.
Don Payne, chair of the Railroad and Pipelines Hazardous Materials Subcommittee.
Well, I'd like to join my colleagues in saying that there's nothing more important than the infrastructure of this country at this point in time. We have a opportunity for first time in decades to do something that is on the levels that we need to accomplish. With respect to water, I remember going to Flint with Ms. Pelosi in the Congressional Black Caucus and thinking about that, coming back home to Newark, New Jersey, and saying, you know, I better take a look at this. And that Tuesday, we found the problems in Newark. And what we've done in Newark, which might be a model for the country, we have just about, as Mr. Pallone said, removed all of our lead service lines. But it was in conjunction with the county and the state. And, you know, Newark is a community that is underserved. So a lot of those homeowners did not have the tens of thousands of dollars to fork up to do that. In conjunction with the state and the city, we've got it done, and Newark is about 100% done. And I think it would be a really good model for the country.
That's impressive. I didn't know that. Great.
So I was just confirming with Mr. Pallone, that Chairman Pallone, that when he and others went under the tunnel with Chuck Schumer, you were with Secretary Buttigieg, and they've made this a priority in the administration as well. So thank you, my colleagues. We just have time for one or two more questions. Yes, ma'am.
So just to get back to the select committee, if we can, I know you're considering putting a Republican on the panel. Have you made a decision about who that should be, and does that make your decision harder if a majority of Republicans don't support this committee today?
Well, I will be making whatever statement I make about the Select Committee when I do, and that is not right now.
Last question.
Last question. Yes. What do you got?
Just to follow up on that, is there, what are you seeking in your appointments for this committee, and are there any non-starters on the Republican side that you would refuse to appoint?
As I said to the distinguished questioner earlier, when I make the statement, I'll make the statement, but what we are seeking is the truth. Thank you all very much. Thank you.